The first thing anyone ever remembered about Evan Miller was the way he ran, fast, reckless, and straight into danger with no thought for himself. But the moment that would define his entire life happened on a sun-baked afternoon behind a rundown convenience store, when a homeless teenage boy with nothing to his name threw himself between a frightened kid and two armed men sprinting out of a failed robbery. In a split second, the world erupted in chaos, and Evan's life changed forever. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that one small act of courage can change somebody's entire destiny, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because this story is one you won't forget. Evan had been living on the streets for nearly a year by then. He was only 15, but life had weathered him into someone older, quieter, and far more broken than any kid should ever be. Nights were spent curled behind dumpsters or in abandoned bus stops, and days were a cycle of hunger, exhaustion, and bone-deep loneliness. He kept to himself, avoided trouble, and trusted no one. His mother had died, his father had disappeared into addiction, and Evan learned early that the world didn't give second chances to kids like him. He moved like a ghost through the edges of town, unseen, unheard, unwanted. That day, he had been digging through the trash behind the convenience store, hoping for leftovers someone hadn't finished, when he heard panicked footsteps and an even more panicked voice. Before he had time to fully react, a younger boy, maybe 11 or 12, sprinted around the corner and skidded on the asphalt, terror wide in his eyes. Behind him thundered two masked men, one carrying a black duffel bag stuffed with stolen cash, the other gripping a gun as if ready to silence any witness. Evan didn't think. He just moved. The kid's small, frightened face carved itself into his heart in an instant, and something fierce, something protective, ignited inside him. He stepped forward, grabbed the boy by the arm, and shoved him behind a stack of crates. The gunman turned, raised his arm, and in the flash of an instant, Evan saw the muzzle spark. He felt the burn first, not even a sound, just a sharp explosion of pain that ripped through his left eye. He collapsed to the ground, dazed, blinded on one side, and the world spun away. The robbers didn't stick around. Sirens blared in the distance, and they took off running, disappearing before Evan could even draw a breath. The younger boy crawled out from behind the crates, shaking, realizing what Evan had done for him. A few minutes later, the world went black beneath the weight of paramedics shouting orders and someone screaming for help. When Evan opened his eye, his only eye, again, he was in a hospital bed. The world was hazy, and the left side of his face throbbed with a pain so deep it felt like it pulsed in his bones. He tried to sit up, but a thick, calloused hand gently pushed him back down. Standing over him was the last person he expected to see, a man built like a wall, covered in leather and tattoos, with grief written across his rugged, worn features. This was Roy Gallagher, a longtime member of the Hells Angels. And the boy Evan had saved was his son, Liam Gallagher. Evan didn't know who Roy was at first. All he saw was a stranger with fire in his eyes and a sorrow that looked too heavy for one man to carry. Roy stayed quiet for a moment, staring at the boy who had nearly died for his child. Then he did the unthinkable, something Evan had never experienced from a grown man before. Roy sat down, bowed his head, and cried. From that moment on, everything changed. The Hells Angels in that region had a reputation, fierce, loyal, intimidating, and not the sort of people anyone wanted to cross. But loyalty works two ways, and when Evan saved Liam's life, he became part of something even he didn't understand yet. The club members visited him every day. They brought food, clothes, blankets, and even books. Evan, who had never had anything, suddenly had more attention, compassion, and genuine concern than he had felt in his entire life. Roy wasn't just grateful, he was determined. He insisted the hospital keep Evan under their care, paid the bills up front, and when Evan was finally released, Roy refused to let him return to the streets. Evan resisted at first, afraid of trusting anyone, convinced that kindness came with price tags. But Roy didn't push, he simply opened the door and kept it open until Evan was brave enough to step through. Moving into Roy's home felt like stepping into another world. For the first time since his mother died, Evan slept in a real bed with real sheets. He had warm meals, clean clothes, and a roof that didn't leak when it rained. And although he struggled to adjust, startled by loud noises, waking up in the middle of the night gasping from nightmares, Roy and Liam stayed by his side through every moment. The other club members treated him with a level of respect that confused him at first. They nodded at him when he walked past, offered him rides on their motorcycles, taught him basic mechanics, and listened when he spoke, even though he often had trouble finding his voice. They didn't look at him like a homeless kid or a burden. They looked at him like someone who mattered. Life wasn't instantly easy. Evan's missing eye changed everything, his depth perception, his balance, even the way strangers reacted to him in public. Some stared. Some whispered. Some avoided looking at him altogether. He battled insecurity, depression, and a fear that he would never live a normal life. But Roy refused to let him drown in self-doubt. He pushed Evan forward, teaching him how to ride, how to fix engines, how to defend himself, and eventually how to rebuild his sense of worth piece by piece. As the months passed, Evan grew stronger, both physically and emotionally. He found a rhythm, a purpose, and a family he never expected. Liam became like a brother to him, following him everywhere, grateful in a way only someone who had been saved could ever be. And Roy, stern, tough, unyielding Roy, became the closest thing Evan ever had to a father. But healing wasn't linear. There were days Evan felt the weight of his past pressing down on him so hard he thought he might break. Days when the memory of the gunshot haunted him, when the loss of his eye felt like an anchor dragging him backward. Days when he doubted he deserved the life he'd been given. It was on one of those days, when Evan sat on the porch staring at the ground with a hollow expression, that Roy placed a hand on his shoulder, not to lecture, not to force him to talk, but simply to remind him that he wasn't alone. And in that moment, Evan realized something he had never understood before. Courage wasn't just about running into danger. Sometimes, courage was letting yourself be loved after a lifetime of being abandoned. Years later, Roy would tell everyone that saving Liam wasn't the miracle, Evan surviving was the miracle. Because the boy he rescued from the streets wasn't just brave. He was kind. He was determined. And he had a heart so big that even losing an eye couldn't dim the power of who he was. If this story touched your heart, if you believe that a single act of bravery can transform not just one life but many, please like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue bringing you stories that inspire hope and humanity. And before you go, comment below with what part of Evan's journey moved you the most. Finally, remember this: sometimes the people we think we're saving are the ones who end up saving us.